Imagine this. You're at a party, having a good old time, but your friend walks in the exact same dress. Luckily, you remember you're wearing your transformation gown for occasions like these. On the spot, you transform your mini black dress into a stunning floor-length gold gown. And just like that, everyone is happy. Hello, my name is Louise and welcome to my channel. In this video, I'll show you how I recreated the transformation dress from Westworld. Out of all of the seasons, season 3 is my favorite because of the costume design and overall futuristic world building that they do. A huge props to the prop and design team. This is definitely not the last thing that I'll be making from this season. This video contains no plot spoilers as the transformation dress didn't really add to the plot, but it was a pretty cool moment. Transformation dresses aren't new. Hussein Chalayan is the expert of transformation garments, and he did a similar technique to the one in this show back in 2013. This is now my second transformation garment, the first being the Cruella Fire dress that I did in my previous video. But anyways, back to the dress in question. The dress is an incredible transformation gown. It starts off as a black fitted mini dress, and when Dolores pulls the neckline, the bodice unsnaps and falls down, allowing gold fabric hidden in the bodice to cascade down and completely hide the black fabric and create a new dress. Now let's jump into how I made it. I started with a gold outer dress. I cut a rectangular panel in a gold jersey knit fabric for the front and back of the floor-length skirt. For the front panel, I gathered the top edge, and for the back, I put in darts to give a nice back definition. Moving on to the bodice, the material comes from the front waist, twists to create the breast cups, twists over the shoulders, and crosses back around to the center front. I put a nude front panel on the dress form and started pinning a rectangular panel of fabric to the waist. After I'm done draping, I keep all of the pleats in place by tacking them to each other. I worked on the twists and cross over to the back. I drape and pin the fabric to the side seam of the skirt as the back is completely open. I continue the draping to the center front, pinning along the way and creating the knot detail where the two sides meet. After a lot of finagling, I then attached the bodice to the skirt. Now for the black cover dress. I started with drafting the skirt from my full bodice sloper. The skirt is super straightforward as it's a simple black mini out of stretch fabric. From the same sloper, I drafted the bodice, making small adjustments to the armholes and adjusting the neckline to a boat neckline. For some nice cinema-accurate details, I split the bodice along a diagonal line to add in the gold detail. I then cut out 2 sets of the skirt and bodice pieces. Since it's fall, we have a nice fall-themed sponsor today, raw canned pumpkin. Out of all the pumpkin recipes I've seen, I have never once seen a recipe preferring real roasted pumpkin to canned pumpkin. Save those pumpkins for fall decorations and pumpkin carving. Now we're going to pin and sew this puzzle together, leaving the shoulder, side, and waist seams unsewn to allow for the snap tabs to be put in later. I add the gold bias tape along the diagonal lines and also the armhole seams and neckline. This gold detail is a really nice nod to the transformation dress underneath. Moving on to the snaps, I first tried them out on scrap fabric, but I found that the knit fabric stretched instead of unsnapped, which is not what I wanted. I ended up making these tabs out of ripstop and even enforced them with some light quilting just in case. I probably overdid it, but that's okay, they still worked. I added the tabs to the back bodice, shoulder, and side seams, which would allow the front bodice to overlap with the tabs and snap together. I then installed the snaps in place, and it's always a good time when a hammer is required. Now that we have the 2 dresses, we need to connect the 2. And if you thought putting in a lining into a dress was difficult, connecting these 2 together took some real thought. To figure it out, I put the black dress on my mannequin and unsnapped the top to simulate the transition. I then placed the gold dress on top and figured out what seams needed to be connected. I pinned the seams together and checked that I attached them correctly. In this state, I decided to try the dress on and test out the transformation, and I was able to unsnap the shoulder seams and have the dress fall, but I kept getting stuck halfway. I tested out ideas for improvement. The first was to roll up the existing skirt fabric in a way that would encourage it to fall. but that didn't really help. Next was to tack the gold skirt to the inside of the black dress bodice so that when it's pulled and falls down, it takes the gold skirt with it. That on its own still didn't help. I then went for the highest effort item. I decided to seam rip the side seams of the gold skirt and try the transition again, and that fell with no problem. I figured I'd have to add a little more fabric into the side seams so it has more room around my hips to fall all the way to the ground. I also found that pulling from the armholes would ensure both the shoulder and side seams would unsnap, and we found the winning combination. I also wanted to be a little extra with this recreation, and I made all of the accessories that go with this outfit: the purse, the stone earrings, and the ear cuff. For the purse, I designed and 3D printed the octagonal clutch and gave it a nice coat of metallic gold paint. The statement earrings have a nice translucent stone dangling from an organic metal shape. I decided to try resin casting, and while we're at it, I'm going to cast custom molds as well. I printed one diamond-shaped stone and sanded it to a smooth surface. I mixed my 2-part mold-making materials together and poured it into a shallow Dixie cup. I then gently placed the stone into the mold and waited for it to harden. But it didn't end up being that simple. I didn't get it on video, but it kept popping to the surface, and I ended up with a huge air bubble in my mold. So I had to start again and be a little more methodical this time. I 3D printed the negative mold for 2 stones at once and casted with this mold, which made it much easier. Once out of the mold, I sanded the stones down to get any bubbles out. I then used an air hardening clay to create the rest of the earring. I shaped some clay around the stones and then a second piece that will hold the ear stud. I embedded rings to connect the clay bits and an earring stud into the top piece. I let them air dry, then painted the clay with a metallic gold paint, which took them from dried chewing gum to absolute stunners. Lastly, I 3D printed the small ear cuff. And with the dress and accessories done, here is the final look. Thank you so much for watching. Projects that I'm working on now and are coming out in the next few weeks include a self-lacing corset, a cross between a Dementor and Kim K's Met Gala look, and also the Westworld Emotion Light Up shirt. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of those videos, and I'll see you next time.